Good morning and welcome back to Coffee Break. Today is Chapter 2 of How a Book Becomes a Book. Last time in Chapter 1 we talked about acquisitions, both foreign and domestic manuscripts, and because they're different at some points, today we're going to talk about the rest of the process for foreign books.
Right, so the first thing we do when we decide to acquire a foreign book is pretty obvious, get it translated. First step.
So our translations do not come with the manuscript that we acquire.
We'll usually get rough translations and the artwork for a book, but yeah, that's enough to make the acquisitions decision, but after that, we want a professional translation to work with so we can start editing it. So then we'll reach out to our translators that we know and see if they're willing to take on a project from us.
And translators, it's an interesting skill set because they not only need to know these two languages really well, but they need to be a good writer as well, correct?
Yeah, because you're not just translating the text verbatim, you're interpreting the meaning and then figuring out how to say this in the best possible way while still remaining faithful to the text, the story. So yeah, they have to be like a good translator, a good writer, and a good editor. Translators wear a lot of hats. They really do.
Okay, so we have the translator and we have the translation. What happens next?
Then the editing happens.
Hey!
It's actually usually less extensive editing-wise for a foreign book versus an original because the artwork is already finalized for the most part. There are some changes that we'll make occasionally.
Well, yeah, we've changed covers before, right? If we think that it just won't translate as well to the American market.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. Oh, look at you.
Like for And Anna's Heaven, was originally published in Norway. And this is a beautiful cover, but we felt like it seemed a little too circus themed, which would be cool, except that the book has nothing to do with the circus.
We didn't want a kid picking this up and thinking like, yes, this is going to be a circus book, and then what do you mean? It's
completely different.
The mom dies. What?
Yeah. So to match the tone, we decided to choose one of the interior illustrations for the cover.
Yeah, and this one has Anna and her dad dressed up in their funeral clothes. So you kind of get, it's got the whimsicalness of the story, but you also have that kind of serious, weighty quality to it. So we thought this cover best described what was happening in the book.
And so that's something that we can do just fine. And it wasn't any more work for the illustrator because it was an existing illustration. But occasionally, we ask the illustrators to tweak things, correct?
Very occasionally. We've got a book coming out called Just for Today, which is based off the Daily Decalogue for St. John the 23rd. And there was, it's 10 little inspirational statements, and one of them was missing. The picture book only had 9. And we noticed this, and we asked very nicely, do you think we could include all 10? And the illustrator and the foreign publisher were both incredibly helpful. They were like, absolutely, yes. And so this is the original one. And so we're actually going to be adding, there we go. This is the original one. And we're actually going to be adding an interior spread here for the other statement that wasn't in this original one. So exclusive artwork only with the US version because we asked nicely.
Yeah.
But these are rare occasions. Generally, the artwork is already finalized and good to go, and then we'll just have to make edits. And those are usually pretty minor because we want to keep the story as it is. This is a story that has been published already. We just have to translate it and make sure it works. And so all we have to do is kind of tailor the book to the market and make sure that readers will be able to relate to the story and connect with it while still keeping the story's integrity and the original meaning behind everything.
So once the editing is all set, then foreign and domestic are essentially the same from that process on, correct? Yep. So we'll get into that later in our series of How a Book Becomes a Book, so stay tuned to learn more.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about how we acquire or translate or edit foreign books that I wasn't able to cover, please leave a comment and we will do our best to explain.
So next week, as you all know, is Thanksgiving weekend, so we will not be seeing you.
We'll be with our families.
Yes, as we hope you are too. So we will see you in 2 weeks.
Hello, welcome to the Arctic tundra.